found out about international relations. It's a very broad subject. It covers so many different things, a lot of things that you wouldn't even think of, even like example, environmental politics. So when you start off, it's surface level subjects, the different regions, the different political regions, history, like how the EU was formed. You learn about the different political ideologies. And then second and third year, you specialize by choosing modules or subjects that you are interested in or that you want your career to go in. You can do policy. You can specialize in specific regions. You are exposed to the international politics, foreign diplomacy aspect of things that I was really interested in. I always wanted to end up in the UN. So I was like, hey, this is a good stepping stone. This is what I want to do. So that's kind of how I decided on IR. Yeah.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Excel Education Talks. We aspire to inspire you through the series of conversations that we are going to have with people from different industries and educational backgrounds. My name is Iran. I am an educational consultant at Excel Education, which is a university placement agency. For more information about Excel Education, you can visit our website, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn page, or get in touch with us through email or WhatsApp. Joining Excel Education Talks today, we have Mitchel N. She graduated from the University of Nottingham, Malaysia with a Bachelor of Arts in International Relations with French. Today she works as a recruitment consultant at Hays Malaysia. So she's going to share with us her insights working as a recruitment consultant at Hays and also how she navigated through this pandemic as a fresh graduate. So thank you so much, Anne, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Iran.
I think the first question that I want to ask is, what makes you decide to study international relations?
I want to call it a last minute decision, very honestly. So I initially wanted to study law and I wanted to then specialize either in like marine law or international law, something along those lines. But then when I read more about the program, I was like, oh, this is going to take far too many years. I want to be working by then. So I did a little bit more research and I found out about international relations, where you do have a lot of the similar elements of you are exposed to the international politics, foreign diplomacy aspect of things that I was really interested in. And I figured, because of how wide IR is as a subject, as an education system, I would eventually then specialize into something. And I read up more about it. I was like, hey, this is something that I do want to do with my life. I always wanted to end up in the UN or do something with that. So I was like, hey, this is a good stepping stone. This is what I want to do. So that's kind of how I decided on IR. Yeah.
What is the program about though?
So the program itself, it's quite varied, right? So when you start off, your foundation year, obviously you can do whatever you want for pre-U. I went to Nottingham, so I enrolled in their Foundation of Arts program because it was kind of like directly correlated. So your foundation year and your first year, you're learning a lot of surface level subjects, a lot of broader subjects. So you understand a little bit about the regions, the different regions, the different political regions. You learn a little bit, for example, about history, like how the EU was formed. You learn about how ASEAN was formed. So you kind of get the basics of all these new terms that you're going to be learning, right? You learn about the different political ideologies. You learn about all these kind of nitty-gritty details, but not really very specific or very niche just yet. So that's your first year. And then second and third year, you get the opportunity to specialize, right? So you specialize by choosing modules or subjects that you are interested in or that you want your, career to go in. So you can do so many things. You can do policy. So you can talk about how policies are formed. You can talk about the process. You can specialize in specific regions. So I know some of my friends, they took classes specific to, for example, the Middle Eastern politics or African politics, right? So you specialize in that. You can do kind of more just international politics, understanding how the different government bodies interact with each other. Or what I did, I kind of moved towards security, so international security. So it really depends on like what you want to do. So that's how you do your second year and your third year. And then when it comes to your third year, obviously you'd have a dissertation to work on, and the trajectory that you've been taking in your past first year and second year kind of dictates also what kinds of topic you're going to talk about in your dissertation, right? So that's just kind of a brief overview. But I'd say IR, it's a very broad subject. It covers so many different things, a lot of things that you wouldn't even think of, even like example, environmental politics and things like that. So anything politics related, anything foreign affairs related. But the cool thing about IR is you kind of get to customize what you study and the direction you want to go in. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what do you do as a recruitment consultant?
So there are two aspects of it. So you've got the candidate side of things and you've got the client side of things. So with clients, you have people who are looking to hire, people who need headcounts for their company, for their businesses, but they're struggling to find, employees, or they're struggling to find the right people to hire. And that's where we come in. So we offer up our services, be like, hey, this is what we do. Day in, day out, we speak to the same kinds of candidate, because at Hays, we're also specialized. So everyone has a very niche portfolio. So it's like, hey, day in, day out, these are the kinds of people I speak to. Tell me what you want, and I'll put you, I'd give you the right candidate, right? So then we take the job in and we're like, okay, our clients are looking for this type of person. We go out and look for these candidates, right? So I know recruitment consultants get a very bad rep. People call us headhunters. They're like, oh, that recruiter keeps calling me and it's like, hey, do you want a job? And like I say, we get a very bad rep. But essentially what we're trying to do is we're trying to get all these people who have either been retrenched, people who are maybe like don't have a job right now, people who have quit, or even people who are still at their jobs but they're unhappy. We take these people, we talk to them, we're like, hey, there's this new opportunity. Would you want to explore that? So then we put them in touch with our clients, we get them interviews, we prep them for interviews. So we tell them how to speak, how to properly answer questions, depending on the types of candidates you're looking at. Sometimes you tell them okay, this is how you should dress for an interview. This is how, make eye contact, shake hands. How do you shake hands? All these different things. We prep the candidate for the interview. And then when they go in for the interview, we, speak to our clients and be like, hey, you've been trying to fill this position for 6 months. Your project is due, or is starting in another 2 months. You've been far too picky with your candidates. So I think this is how you should do it instead. So then we kind of speak to our clients to get them to understand that it's not going to be easy to find that unicorn candidate that a lot of people are looking for. So we're like, hey, if you want someone with this many years of experience and all of this, you need to compromise. So it's a lot of negotiation, consulting, and then eventually we get our clients to hire our candidates.
It's very different from Job Street, right? There's a human touch to
definitely.
It. Very, very personalized.
So for example, for Job Street, you would share your profile across, right? And then if you have the keywords, your profile is flagged in the system, and then you eventually wait for one of the HRs or hiring managers to reach out to you. But with Hays, the personalized touch comes in when we understand that sometimes people with, I don't want to say bad, but people with less attractive CVs, they have the necessary skills. They might just not know how to write a CV. Or we also understand that people who just have these bombastic CVs with all the accoutrements, they're not necessarily the best candidates, right? So you definitely go through a more thorough screening process when you're with a recruitment consultant. Yeah.
So interesting. So, what are the challenges you face? I mean, especially with the effect of the pandemic going on right now, it affects the economy, and you mentioned about retrenchment,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, what are the challenges that you face as a recruitment consultant in this season?
So I would say the challenge that a lot of people definitely are facing is that companies are not doing very well. Financially, a lot of companies are struggling. It's just because of, revenues and things like that. But a little insight that I think I can provide is depending on the industry. So this is very, very industry dependent. This doesn't apply to all industries, but depending on the industry, there are actually more jobs out there than you would think. So, for example, I specialize in recruiting for tech roles, right? So I specialize in recruiting for like software developers, architects, solutions architects, like system analysts. So that's what I specialize in, right? And my market, so my current industry, my current market, I have jobs, but I don't have candidates because people just don't think that there are as many jobs as there actually are, right? So they're not applying, or they are in a lot of what we see, for example, is that people are in companies that, let's say, they're not happy with their job. For example, for whatever reason, they're not happy with their job. But because in this pandemic, the company is still making money, the company is still able to pay them, they don't want to leave because they think that if they leave, they're not going to get a job that's as stable, or they're not going to have that stability that they currently have, which is not true because I'm working with so many clients that are just as stable, if not more, than some of these companies. But we struggle to find people to place. We struggle to find candidates because of that, right? Because there are jobs, just not enough candidates. And I mean, to be fair, the developer market in Malaysia is quite small as well. So I think that's one of the challenges where people maybe don't know about some of these options that they have. Other than that, I think the biggest challenge is also people being really worried. People are very insecure right now, and they're chasing that job security, that financial security. And when you have, I don't like to use this word, but when you have people who are desperate for that security, you get people who maybe will take the first job they see, even if it's not something that they're happy with, So I think that's one of the biggest challenges, is helping the market kind of understand where they're at, because it might not be the same. For example, I know for sales, there are more candidates than there are jobs. So then it's kind of a different strategy, right? And it's understandable because sales, with that industry has been struggling a little bit. So it really depends which industry you come from. I don't want to speak for any other industry because I don't want to provide false information, but at least for tech, this is the challenge, where even though, companies are moving towards, social media, they're moving towards more like technology forward innovations and stuff, right? But people don't realize that. Like, I know so many, for example, even like banks or software houses that have these huge projects, but they can't find people because there's just like no one is willing to move, or no one's aware of it. So yeah.
That's very interesting. Any tips and advice for fresh graduates who are looking for jobs right now?
Do something. It's very arbitrary, but it's like, if you find a job that you're like, hey, I graduated with a first class in so and so, I'm not going to go and be like now because of the pandemic, right? I'm not going to go and do retail, or I'm not going to go and do like marketing. It's like, no, if you need a job right now, do that first. Like, look for people who are hiring for fresh graduates. Look for people who don't really have super high requirements. Apply for those jobs. And sometimes, I'll be very honest with you, if the job description says, 3 to 5 years of experience, there's wiggle room. There's always wiggle room. Speak to the hiring manager. Like, LinkedIn is a very underutilized tool where, for example, if let's say you graduated with a degree in marketing, right? And you want to go into marketing, go on LinkedIn, look up all these like companies that specialize in either digital marketing, print marketing, find out who their hiring manager is, or find out who their team lead is, right? Approach them, like send them a message on LinkedIn and be like, hey, I'm a fresh graduate. Send them your portfolio and be like, hey, this is all the work I've done either on my own or in university. I've heard a lot about your company. I would really like to be a part of your company. This is what I can do. Can we have a chat? Like, be a little aggressive about it. Don't be pushy, but be a little aggressive, like approach them. Because even if they're not hiring right now, when they are, they're going to know that this person has approached them before and has spoken to them and is interested, right? So they might come to you first, and you have to leave a good impression, right? The other thing that I can say is pick up some skills. Like if you're stuck at home, if you really cannot find anything right now, pick something up. People with the better portfolios tend to get noticed, right? Even if you're young, even if you don't have working experience, if you can show a company like, hey, I did this without training, I did this without a full-time job, imagine what I can do under your guidance. I know it comes from a very privileged perspective to say this, but don't sit in a corner and cry about not having a job if you're not doing anything about it. Like, I know the market's really tough right now. I know that jobs are very scarce, and I know like family situations can be very, very difficult and very different, right? But I'm always very realistic in saying that if you're not doing anything to change your situation, you cannot really blame other people for it. And that's just kind of like, you know, people call it tough love, people call it like being too direct, but that's just how it is, you know. If you're not out there looking for a job, even if you have to, and I'm not saying these are bad jobs, but even if temporarily you have to work at, let's say, a fast food restaurant, or if you have to do retail, if you need a job, then start somewhere, because at the end of the day, the attitude is what's going to matter. And you realize eventually that years of experience on a JD, they don't really mean anything.
It's true. Those are great tips, and I really agree with what you say. Even opportunity comes knock on the door, you literally have to get out and do something and grab it, right? So yeah, I do agree with what you say. So thank you so much. You probably come across hundreds or thousands of resumes. Any tips and advice again for students who are drafting their resume?
Don't believe what they say about a one-page resume. Please don't. Please do not like buy into that, because I understand as a student, maybe you haven't had that much experience. This is one other tip. I don't know if this is better for like the previous question, but get involved in uni. Like, get involved. Clubs, intern in your free time, like on weekends, go and volunteer somewhere, get involved. Because even for fresh graduates, if you've only done enough to put on one page, that's not a great sign for someone who's looking for fresh graduates, because you haven't done enough, right? Whatever you learn in uni, it's not going to be, honestly, it's not enough. You need to have some type of real world experience, even if it's a part-time job on Saturday, Sundays, right? So get involved. And then tips and tricks for CV, don't believe the one page. Don't believe that. When I look at CVs, obviously different consultants have different ways of shortlisting, right? But generally, if we see a one CV, like one page CV for someone who's had like 2, 3, 4 years of experience, we're like, what is this? Because yes, you want to be concise. So don't write like paragraphs, you know, for each job, but give some description. If let's say you were a software development intern, right? Don't just say software development intern worked on some projects with team manager or like supervisor. Don't just say that. Tell me what kinds of projects you worked on. Worked on X project, did this, and then tell me the results. Like, did you complete it in 2 months instead of the projected 4 months? Did you make your company money? Did you pick up a new programming language? So give substantial descriptions of what you achieved and what you've learned. And that's what's going to attract your, people are going to be attracted to your CV. Yes, I understand some people, they're like, oh, this is a really long CV, I don't want to look at it. But if it's long with substance, that's always going to be better than just I worked as an intern here, I developed this program, So that's one thing I'd say, like, it's okay to embellish it a little bit. Obviously don't go over the top. Please, like, I know they say, like, make your CV attractive, like, for the hiring manager, but please don't add, like, too many colors. Don't, like, format it really weirdly, because sometimes when you format it on your computer, if you're using, let's say, Word or PDF, and if I were to open it, let's say on Keynote on my Mac, it's just gonna go all over the place. Right? So standardized formation, like, format it really nicely. It's like fonts. Don't go crazy with the fonts. Don't go crazy with the colors. Sometimes I'll be very honest, sometimes we open, so this is in the office, right? Sometimes we open a CV, right? And it might be a really good candidate, like a really, really good, solid candidate. But we look at the CV and we're just like, this guy has like 6 different colors on his CV, like shapes and all these things. And we're just gonna be like, do you see this guy's CV? Like, he's a solid candidate, but man, this CV, So keep that in mind. Just like, you don't have to use flashy colors to attract someone. Substance is what matters. Like, you're not just painting over something ugly, right? So substance, that's what's important.
Thank you. What's the most rewarding part of your job?
Am I allowed to say my paycheck? No, I'm kidding. No, most rewarding part of my job, I would say, when we get a candidate a job, right? And they come back to you and they're like, hey, I've been looking for a job for 6 months and you got me a job in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month. Thank you. Honestly, people who thank their recruiters, people who understand that I don't want to call you every day and be like, hey, have you done this? Like, hey, have you done that? But that's my job. And my job is to find you a job, right? So sometimes that's what I have to do, especially if you don't pick up your phone or you don't reply my emails, right? You spend days, weeks trying to get someone a job, and it happens, and they get the job and they're happy. Like, especially, I think, like, the little things. For example, if you work with a candidate who's severely underpaid and you fight with your client to give them that raise, and they get it and they come to you and they're like, this is more than I ever expected. Like, stuff like that, it really makes you feel like you're making a difference in these people's lives, even if you're just getting them a job. It's to some people, it's not really a big deal, especially like for senior candidates. They're like, whatever, it's a new job. But for some people who may have been struggling, some people who may have been really scared to leave their last jobs, like walking them through the process, helping them prepare for like every step of the way, and then they come back to you and they're like, hey, thank you so much, I couldn't have done this without you. That's the most rewarding part. Yeah.
Wow. I think your role is really important, especially in this season. Really, yeah.
Definitely, yeah. It's scary, but yeah.
So where do you see the recruitment industry in the future, especially in Malaysia context?
Like you said earlier, that's that human touch. You're not going to really know how to go for a very specific interview through YouTube. No one's gonna, like, no bot is going to send you an email and be like, hey, this hiring manager, he's really particular about the color pink, so don't wear pink when you go for the interview. Things like that. You're not gonna get that from YouTube, and you're not gonna get that from the company website. So I think recruitment is one of those industry. I'm not going to say it's recession proof, because it depends on the economy as well, and it depends on the job market, but I think it's one of those industries that is something that's always going to be there. Strong or not, it's going to be there.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing that. And what's next for you? And where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I'll be very, very honest. I don't see myself doing recruitment forever. You know, it's not something that I had wanted when I graduated. It's something that I kind of fell into, and I love it. Like, I love my job right now, but it's not something I want to do forever. I'd like to go back into IR at some point. I'd like to go back into international security, because that's what I am really passionate about, or even like environmental security, something along those lines that I'm really passionate about. So what's next? I'm gonna stay here still. There's still so much to learn. You know, it's a great stepping stone for an illustrious career in anything, right? So I'm gonna stay here for now, learn as much as I can, experience as much as I can, meet as many wonderful people as I can. And then I think an important thing to realize is you can't really plan like every detail down. For me, it's a very feeling thing. So if in the next like 2 years, I feel like, okay, it's time to move on, then I'm not going to be like, no, but I said I'm going to stay here for 3 years now. I'm going to go with the flow. You know, I have some plans for the future with like my partner and everything. So like I said, it depends on the feeling, but for now, I'm staying at Hays for a while, and eventually I'd like to go back into IR.
All right. Thank you so much. That's about it from my end. Anything else you want to add or tell the audience?
One thing I guess I wish I knew, or one thing that I wish people had told me when I was looking for a job, when I graduated, or even like figuring out what I wanted to do like after high school, is take your time. Like, don't rush. There's no like world competition to see who can get a job the fastest. Like, there's no world competition to see who can figure out their life the fastest. Like, take your time. You know, we're young. I know we hear that a lot, but you're young. There's so many different things in the world for you to do and experience. You're always going to get a job at some point. You know, you're always going to get money. It's always going to come to you at the right time. But with experiences, you're going to have to go for those. You're going to have to go chase those. So prioritize being happy and prioritize doing okay, like mentally, physically, emotionally, and don't try to get into the rat race as fast as you can. Like, take your time. Yeah, that's one thing I think people don't hear enough, especially Asian kids. Like, I don't think we hear that enough. So remember, just take your time. It's okay. Your parents, they're still gonna love you. Don't worry about it.
Thank you so much, and really thank you so much for taking your time to do this with us. And we hope that you enjoy the time with us. And for the audience, we hope you enjoyed today's episodes of Excel Education Talks. Thank you so much for tuning into Excel Education Talks today. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please like the video and subscribe to our channel, and also share this video with your friends. If you have any comments or feedback, we would like to hear from you as well. Drop us a message if you would like us to guide you in picking the right course, or with your university application to Malaysia, Australia, the UK, or Canada. Our educational consultants are more than happy to assist you with your inquiry. See you in the next episodes of Excel Education Talks. Bye! 5 things you cannot go to work without.
Okay, so 5 things I cannot go to work without. Coffee, or at least my own coffee mug, because I don't like to use disposable mugs. So coffee / my own coffee mug. I can't go to work without my wireless earphones, just because it's easier to talk on the phone that way. A notebook. I'm still old school, so I like to take notes, like pen notes down. So notebook. I cannot go to work without a like really comfortable pair of flats, because you're in corporate, you're always in heels. So I always like to keep like a pair of flats just with me for when the feet aches come. And third is I cannot go to work without a little tub of lotion, because my office is really cold and dry, so I need that.